LeBron and the Lakers have some work to do with their fourth straight win. They will eliminate the Rockets and be halfway to their 17th NBA championship in franchise history. The Lakers are 35-1 in best-of-7 series when they lead 3-1. One more victory in the Lakers will clinch their 41st trip to the conference finals more than any team in NBA history. But they got to take care of the Rockets to get there. Game at 5. Hello and welcome to Access Sportsnet Lakers, brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Chris McGee, Hall of Famer, Big Game James Worthy, Tough Juice, Caron Butler, the two-time All-Star, is with us. Allie will be working remotely from home. We'll check in with her later on. We have Brez joining us. We got Mike Trudell down the hall, and it is a closeout game, and I know Big Game likes those.
Yeah, especially when you are up 3-1. That's a definite closeout because, you know the team really doesn't want to try to win 3 in a row unless you allow that to happen. So with veteran players like LeBron and, some of the other guys that know how to close out, Rondo, I think that'll be their number one priority, is to get in people's mind that we can't mess around with this game. We saw what happened last night with the Clipper and Nugget game. We don't want that to happen to us. Let's go ahead and knock this out so we can start preparing for the next round.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have that leadership of LeBron James and Rondo, because they're not going to look too far ahead. They're going to try to handle business tonight first and then celebrate that victory and stay true to the mission and winning a championship.
Lakers made it 3 in a row Thursday in Game 4 to take a 3-1 series lead. A complete team effort as they built a 23-point lead and held on to win 110-100. LeBron James finished an assist shy of a triple-double, while Anthony Davis scored a game-high 29 points. The Lakers' size, even with a smaller starting five, dominated Game 4. Twice as many rebounds, 52-26. Points in the paint, 62-24 in favor of the Lakers. It was the first playoff game since 1997 when a team had twice as many rebounds and points in the paint as its opponents. Fast break points also lopsided, 19-2. LeBron reminded us, Big Game James, they're not that small, even when they go to small ball and they dominated physically.
Especially when he's in the game, whether they're going small or big, he's a monster. And, they do have players that play big. They have length. Kuzma has length, so they know how to play big when they have that, what you call a small lineup in there. So it doesn't matter. They, without McGee and Dwight Howard not getting any play, they've been able to still dominate. You just mentioned points in the paint, even fast break points. They're still been able to get the things that they get usually. 30 assists in the last game. That's motion. That's moving the ball. That's getting everybody involved. That's recognition of Rondo's arrival. So they're still doing the things that they were doing best before all the pandemic happened and they had to shut it down. They're getting back to that right now.
Even though they're smaller in size with their traditional lineup that they have been using, they're still bigger than the Rockets. And I love the fact that they're not just on the perimeter or trying to play that style of play. They're still pounding the ball inside. They're taking advantage of those mismatches, and that's why they're up to a comfortable lead in this series.
All right, guys, Anthony Davis leading the way inside 4 straight games with at least 25 points and 10 boards. 7 such games this postseason. The only other Laker since 2000 to do that in a single postseason, Shaquille O'Neal. 5 straight years. 5 straight years he did it. Since Game 1, AD has dominated and imposed his will on the Rockets, James.
Yeah, and you know what? He surveyed how he's been defended in the bubble. You remember Toronto gave him a look, first loss in this series. He was getting pushed around a little bit by Tucker. And so when he goes to the video room, he looks at it, and he's been able to change it quickly by catching the ball and going quickly, having a variety of shots when he posts up, facing up, shooting his little 10-footers at the elbow is where he loves to operate. So, yeah, he's been in attack mode on both ends, and that's why he's been able to dominate.
I love the fact that when he's carving out space, you nailed it, Big Game. He's not being pushed around anymore. When he gets his space, he's like, you know what, this is my real estate. I carved it out, and I'm operating in this space, and he's operating rather quickly instead of letting the double teams and things happen. Now, he's baited it sometimes, but for the most part, he's drawn fouls, he's got to the paint, and he got exactly what he wanted out of the situation.
All right, guys, for the latest on this potential closeout game, let's check in with Lakers reporter Mike Trudell, who joins us down the hall. Michael, welcome.
What's happening, fellas? Nice to see you as always. I thought Tough Juice made such an important point thinking about a couple minutes ago. This Laker team, even though they've technically gone small, they're not small, right? They're still pretty big. They're still long. AD's 6'10", LeBron 6'9", Keith is 6'8". Their guards are pretty big, and then they come in off the bench with Kuz, who's big at 6'8". So, this is not a small team, even though they have the versatility on offense. And so what I wanted to talk to Frank Vogel about was actually that small ball group and what they've done defensively. Because, guys, if you ask me, that's really what flipped this series for good and what kind of, put Houston on their heels, and they just have not had an answer for the way that the Lakers play defense with that smaller group. So here's Frank Vogel a couple minutes ago.
With the way we're defending Russell and Eric and James, there's a lot of double teams and a lot of scrambling around the three-point line without a big in the dunker spot. So the more mobility that we can have, to chase around the three-point line and still have the size to rebound, that's what fits that lineup the best.
In a closeout situation, is there any different point of emphasis for you from a coaching standpoint as a favorite player?
Well, we got to expect the unexpected. These are always back against the wall situations where, you could see the other team play its best players 48 minutes or throw out a different defensive scheme or try new guys in there. They're going to try everything. And then the other aspect of it is, you're always going to get the other team's best shot. So the margin for error will be more slim in this game than it was in the previous games, and we got to make sure we elevate our play.
Hey, Frank, it's Dave. Anthony Davis, maybe we take for granted what he's doing out there on the court, but can you just put into words what he gives you on a night-to-night basis, against a team that is doing everything they can in between games to try to limit him? And still being able to perform so far so well through these playoffs.
Yeah, he's just being Anthony Davis. He's got the versatility offensively to dominate in a variety of different ways, and he's doing that right now and causing problems for them, forcing double teams and dominating the glass and whatnot. And then defensively, he's a 7-footer that can contain their guards and scramble around a three-point line and give all that length. So you have the ability to have rim protection out there, blocking shots with someone that can still scramble around a three-point line, have that mobility as well. So he's really just invaluable on both sides of the ball, and a big reason for our success this whole season.
All right, guys, there's Frank Vogel. Now, Houston head coach Mike D'Antoni spoke a couple moments afterwards. He was asked about the Danuel House Jr. situation, and he said, look, we will try and deal with that later. We just have to focus on trying to win one game. So for more on the House situation, let's go back to Geeter.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. It's one of my favorite topics. You're a good man. We're actually going to talk about it a little later in the show.
Oh, okay.
So be ready for that. Listen, we got a Twitter poll question for you guys. A little fan poll. Which of these Lakers has had the biggest impact in this series? Alex Caruso, Markieff Morris, Rajon Rondo, other role player. How about that? That's a tough one. Go to our website, SpectrumSportsNet.com, and vote. We'll have the results later in the show. If you had to pick one guy, who would it be?
They all played extremely well, but I would have to go Rondo. Yeah. I just think his impact on the defensive end of the floor, offensively, and being able to knock down shots that he's just been given on the perimeter, that's just huge.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a tie, but since I only have to choose one, I have to go with Rondo. Been out for 6 months, coming back at the perfect timing when they need him in the playoffs. They need his experience, they need his guidance. Definitely, it's been Rondo.
Caruso is a Twitter legend.
Yeah.
So if Rondo can,
been huge.
If Rondo can win this, that'd be
Rondo getting this.
An upset. I agree with you.
Hands down, Rondo.
But you got to really win it to beat Caruso. It's real tough on Twitter.
He's a Twitter GOAT.
And he's playing well. So, all right, plenty more ahead here on Access Sportsnet Lakers as we go inside the bubble. The Rook, Talon, Horton Tucker, got his first taste of playoff action in Game 4. 5 points in 7 very productive minutes for THT. And next, our insider joins us to provide a little warning if the Lakers don't clean up that sloppy fourth quarter from Game 4. Was that enough for Frank Vogel and the staff to keep the team focused? We're coming right back. This finals could very well be a hallway series that we've never seen before. The Lakers lead Houston 3-1 and can advance with a win tonight. The Clippers had a 3-1 lead last night, but blew a 16-point lead to Denver. The Clips still have a 3-2 series lead, but don't count out Michael Malone's Nuggets.
We're not going home yet. We ain't gone fishing yet. We're going to live to play a game number 6 and, try to stretch the series out and try to win it. I know everybody's excited about the Lakers playing the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, but we're hoping to have something to say about that.
All right. On that note, we bring in our Laker insider, Mike Bresnan, for Brez's three-point play. 3 things that you're looking forward to in this game, and you want to start with the Clippers.
Yeah, how can we not? I mean, great quotes from Mike Malone last night. We're not going fishing yet, but the Lakers could definitely learn a lesson from their rival. Don't blow an elimination game possibility. Clippers were up 3-1, coasting in that game. Like you said, they were up 16. And then the fourth quarter happened. They allowed 38 points and kind of got stagnant on offense as well. Only 3 Clippers scored in that fourth quarter. Lakers, they weren't so good in that fourth quarter the other night in Game 4. There you see it, 6 turnovers. Got a little loose and free with a 23-point lead, but of course, they battled back and hung on to win that game. Got a little too close. Whatever they do, do not copy the Clipper template from last night. Close out a team when you have them on the ropes.
You're hoping they learned a lesson is what you're telling me.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to think about Lakers Clippers in the next round, but
don't get ahead of yourself.
First you got to get there.
The internet's favorite player has captured your attention.
Yeah, he has. Alex Caruso, 16 points the other night, and the huge corner 3 with about half a minute left to play to kind of push that Laker edge back up out of reach of the Houston Rockets. And Geet, after the game, maybe the quote of the day, I asked him, I said, is that the biggest shot you've ever hit, ever? He said, no, back in AAU, I hit a game winner from about half court. Then he said, I'm joking. Yeah, so it was amazing. I mean, he's a fun kid, too, having a really good time with what he's doing. And big picture, I mean, in the 9 Laker playoff games, he's been positive in the plus-minus in 8 of those games, playing great defense as well, and some big points the other night from AC.
Are you voting on our Twitter poll?
I am. Yeah. I'll go with Caruso, since you guys all took Rondo.
Okay.
Mix
I
it
like
up a little bit.
So the third point you're going to make, it's not about this game. It's actually about news surrounding next season for the NBA.
Yeah.
There's been so many rumors. What do we know for sure?
Yeah, it's not too early to look ahead, right?
No.
Let's do it. It's
going to be quick.
Yeah, the Board of Governors had some meetings this week, and they decided that December 25th is probably the earliest that the next season would kick off. So we're talking a Christmas Day debut, possibly, definitely going to monitor the COVID-19 situation and all those important things, of course. They're hoping to play all 82. So, the season did start on the 25th of December. Back in 2011, they played only 66 games. Mm-hmm. So now maybe we'll see some back-to-back-to-backs. We just don't know. I know the players don't love that, the Players Union. But keep in mind, the Olympics start on July 23rd. So maybe a big deadline for the NBA schedule maker. Try to condense all those games as quickly as you can, because we know the NBA and the IOC love going hand in hand to these Olympics.
Did they have anything out about the latest they would start?
Nothing yet. They're definitely going to monitor the situation. They kind of get fans in stands for sure. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. Probably not a full arena for anyone to start the season, but it seems like, remember earlier they were thinking maybe the first week of December. Christmas really is the earliest possible date as far as these Board of Governors meetings.
All right, Brez, good stuff right there. Straight ahead on Access, James Harden was frustrated in Game 4. The NBA scoring champ is finding it harder and harder to get good looks, and so are his teammates. Welcome back. The Lakers hope there is no if necessary in their future. They can close out the Rockets tonight. The Western Conference Finals then would not begin until Wednesday at the earliest. If the Rockets force a Game 6, that will be on Monday. If things go to 7, that will be on Wednesday. Let's go inside Access. The Rockets love to shoot the 3, but the Lakers have made it tough on them in this series. In round 1, Houston made over 18 of 51 attempts on average per game. That's a 36% clip. But against the Lakers, they've struggled to shoot with that frequency. Just 15.5 makes on under 39 attempts per game. Well, while that's 40%, they're scoring about 8 fewer points per game behind the arc. that can help explain how, despite shooting at least 40% from three in each of the last 3 games, the Rockets lost all those games. You know, Mike Trudell brought it up earlier, guys, when we spoke to him, how the Lakers changed this series. I mean, the Rockets are just not getting as many open threes as they're used to getting. The Lakers are chasing them off the line. They have adjusted, and it's rattled the Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably said this 50 times. But when you're traveling around in regular season, you're in New York one night, Philadelphia the next, you can get away with the style of play that the Rockets play. But when you get a team for 7 games, you know, they beat the Lakers the first game. They made some adjustments the second game. Now, I really like, you know, inserting Morris in the lineup. Went really, like we said, small but still big, and played a little zone. They took Harden right out of his game. You know, they double-teamed him spontaneously sometime. Sometime he come out to pick and roll. They made him pick it up. And then they were just scrambling from that point. And so when you're not getting your natural easy shots and you got to play defense, now they started to wear them down a little bit. You know, they're without House. They get worn down in games 3 and 4, and I think that's what we're witnessing.
Hey, big game, you nailed it. I think that when you look at Harden and you look at Westbrook, they haven't particularly been dominant in their space offensively. So now you're able to close out, you know, you're 2 feet closer to the guy on the perimeter. So you're contesting those shots and you're contesting those looks. And you don't have to put so much emphasis on making sure that you're away from your guy because you have to build that wall to slow those 2 guys down. But look, that's why they're still a threat, because they haven't had their great performance yet. These are 2 MVP candidates still in their prime.
You know, James, you bring up a great point about it being a series compared to the regular season. The regular season, you're going to have a scouting report and you're going to do your thing, but you're not going to change how you play. But in a 7-game series, we used to see this with the Warriors. When the Warriors would play Chris Paul and James Harden, the Rockets in small ball, they would go with a completely different lineup for those games than they would, say, in the NBA Finals. I think that's such a valid point. And you bring up a great point, too. Harden's frustrated, though. I mean, 2 for 11, 1 for 6. What the Lakers have been able to do to him, and he is so good offensively, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And he has so much pressure, and people may not see it or identify it as pressure, but when you think about Harden and accolades, individual accolades, he's won in the regular season.
Yeah.
He got an MVP, but he has not had that defining playoff moment as all great players do. And I think that every time he's on the cusp of having it, he runs into something that's just different. He ran into the Golden State Warriors. Chris Paul went down due to injury. And all of a sudden, LeBron James is in the Western Conference. And this is another wall, a big wall, might I add, that's right there in his face. So I think that this is just one of those situations that I feel bad for him, unfortunately, because the best player is LeBron James in this series, and I think he's going to impose his will on this series.
And that frustration could grow on a player, James. It could follow you, man.
Absolutely. I mean, it can affect your game. You know, if he comes out tonight and not happy with what's going on, he can start, you know, not shooting well. His mind not really on what he needs to be doing. There's a lot of stuff that can go. You can start fussing at teammates, but you buy into this system. You know, I've seen this system in Phoenix with Nash and Amari. It's a successful system, no doubt. But the farther you keep progressing, at some point, you're going to run into something that will shut it down. It's usually size, quickness, or both. Yeah. So, you know, it's a great system. It's a regular season. It's hot, 3-pointers, Harden, killing people. But at some point, you're going to run into some trouble when you get up to the elite and you get stuck with somebody for 7 games.
Now, listen, you're only,
I'm about to say, did LeBron got a little size and quickness or both?
I think he's got, and both. Yeah. Oh, and he's got a friend named Anthony Davis.
Too. Just put it out there.
I was going to say, like, you have to play with what you have, right? So you have to look at that roster and say, who can help James Harden out? I mean, the first name that comes to mind is Eric Gordon, because he's a tough player. He can score. He can get you 30.
He's occupied on the defensive end of the floor. I love what Eric Gordon came out and did game 1. Yeah. He had an out-of-body performance from a production standpoint offensively. However, he still had to guard the best player on the planet on the opposing end in LeBron James. And then now, because they're dialed in and keyed into that matchup, they're able to run him off things and take his legs from him. So now his percentage goes down as he shoots 35% from the field. And, you know, his 3-point opportunities is different because you know his strengths. So you're running him off those things and pushing him towards his weaknesses. And also, House Jr., I thought that was just a huge blow, a huge subtraction to that ball club, him exiting the bubble.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little later in the show. And, James, you could just tell this Rockets team's getting thinner and thinner.
Yeah, the only guy that can probably help out a little bit, and he's been playing pretty good, is Green. Green's been around for a while. You can't go to sleep on him. He knows they need him. A pretty good player, but still, he's got to defend somebody on the other end. And that's what happens to small ball. When you got Harden down there trying to guard AD, you get tired. You got LeBron coming down the lane, and you got Morris down there who's a beast. I don't care how strong you are. Tucker's probably the only one that can handle it for 48 minutes, but at some point, it's going to take something away from your game on the other end.
And you got this fresh Laker bench that's coming at you now with all kinds of speed. So,
hello.
Sir.
Problem. Game 4 is about a half hour from tip-off in the bubble. Russell Westbrook averaging over 20 points and 8 rebounds against the Lakers in this series. Next on Access, LeBron James is getting it done at age 35, perhaps more efficiently than ever. We'll explain how.
I want to see that birth certificate. I believe he's 24.
Got a trio of double-doubles from LeBron, AD, and a man named Playoff Rondo. It's the first time 3 Lakers had double-doubles in the same playoff game since Andrew Bynum, Pau Gasol, and Lamar Odom did it in 2010. It's the year they beat the Celtics in the championship. Lakers own the paint. They outscored Houston 62-24 there in Game 4. For the series, they hold a 53-34 edge in the paint. Even more ridiculous, as a team, the Lakers are shooting nearly 70% in the paint for the series, 69.7%. According to ESPN Stats and Info, that would be the highest for any series since 1997. More bad news for Houston. The NBA investigated and ruled that Daniel House violated the NBA health and safety protocols. He's been sent home. He will not be with the Rockets for the rest of the season. The league determined that he had an unauthorized guest in his hotel room. House averaged 11 points per game in the playoffs for Houston. At least they now have some resolution to the matter. So he's gone. Karan, that hurts this Rockets team. It's unfortunate. You feel bad for him, but he's got to feel bad too, because that's letting down the team.
It really is when you think about the importance of him being an asset to this ball club and averaging, double figures consistently in the playoffs. He's the guy that can offset a lot of things. Knocking down shots on the perimeter. Defensively, he's a problem. He understands assignments. And to be able to get a quality win in Game 1 in this series and then have that momentum pretty much in your favor and then pivot and have this situation happen, that's a huge subtraction. So many things happening on the cups with Harden's legacy, with Mike D'Antoni job situation, a lot of things.
Yeah, never want to judge anybody until you know the full story, but that one definitely hurts. And it just makes this team even thinner, James. They already had a small bench, and he was a major part of that bench. You take him away, that's 7 guys in your
got
rotation.
evicted.
Yeah, I mean, look.
No, for real, he got evicted out the
He really
ball.
did. Like, you're gone.
We all
Bags
make
are packed.
Yeah, he's gone. We all make mistakes. First thing you got to do is you got to take responsibility for it. You got to own up to it, not repeat it. Now, the third thing is, yes, you do hurt your team. You do hurt your team, and the timing was not good. I made mistakes myself, and you have to take responsibility for it and learn from it. There's nothing he can do about it now. He's been evicted, but he's got to, he's young, and I don't think the Rockets were going to beat the Lakers in 7, but his absence, really decreases their chances. So, I don't know House, but I know from experience, just own up to it and think about it and do better and be better and keep growing.
Great stuff, James. After the Lakers won Game 3, former Rockets guard Vernon Maxwell, who's great on Twitter, by the way, he suggested that he, Hakeem, Clyde, Big Shot, and others from his 90s teams were available to help the current Rockets. It didn't happen, obviously, so let's check in now on Mad Max. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Goose, Heineken, God knows what else, I will not be in the lineup for tonight's Rockets versus Lakers game. Thank you, everyone, for the birthday wishes. So, Mad Max, Karan, having a good time on his birthday.
Yeah, keeping it all the way 100. I love it. Mad Max, still mad.
He's still funny, man. He's fun. Big Game, what do you remember about Vernon?
Well, you just said, man. He had a fierce personality, a little younger than me, but I do remember him. And, you know, he was a baller, man. He was a baller, you know. It was a guy you'd love to have on your team when he was, you know, when he was in his game, but he had an extraordinary personality.
He wanted Big Shot Rob to get out there.
Yeah.
Dream.
Oh, man, I don't know how much they could have helped him at this
Rob
point.
said now he'd average about 18 because everyone shoots threes. That's what Rob told
It'd be
us.
the Walker League.
Yeah.
He said,
You know
it's
what
his
the Walker
story. Let
League
him
is,
tell it.
Gator?
Let him tell it. He's got 7 rings. Any story he wants.
You know what the Walker League is?
What's the Walker League?
It'd be the Walker League.
Walk with the Walker. After the Lakers
No
win.
offense, just, you know, but that's what it would be.
None taken. After the Lakers win in Game 3 of the series, LeBron James broke Derek Fisher's record for most career playoff victories. LeBron is now at 163 and counting. D. Fish, by the way, was asked about that before the Sparks game in Florida.
You know, I guess for 2 minutes, you know, when people put it up, I get to tell my kids I was pretty cool because I was close to LeBron James in something in life. But you know, he's you know, one of the greatest, you know, athletes to ever play any sport. The only reason I'm on that list is because I stood on the shoulders of guys like him. So, you know, to be mentioned in that category for me it's more about Kobe and Shaq and Powell and Lamar and Phil and you know, that's how I got there. LeBron carried a lot of guys to get to the top of that list.
Good stuff right there from our friend D. Fish. We welcome in Allie Clifton to the discussion. Allie, you covered LeBron for close to a decade. You've seen how he operates in the playoffs. How much of a killer instinct should we expect from him tonight with a potential closeout game?
Before we get to that, Gator, can I first apologize for not showering you with Goose, Heineken, and whatever else on your birthday the other day? I thought sugarfish donuts and more donuts were okay.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, you know, maybe you could have gotten Vern to hang out with me or something like that. He sounds like he had a good time.
Noted. Maybe when you reach the next decade.
Yeah.
There's always next year.
Appreciate you.
Closeout situation. Well, if there's one thing that's been consistent when it comes to LeBron in this time of year, his message has always been that closeout games are the hardest to win. Not only do you obviously have to be sharp as a collective with your own game plan, but then you think about your opponent and the desperation kind of basketball that they're going to throw at you. So to have that appropriate guard up is going to be key. But if you're Laker Nation, the one good thing when it comes to LeBron in these situations, closeout opportunities, being up 3-1, and it's not his first rodeo. He is 13-0, and so I expect him to be great. He expects himself to be great, and we expect, of course, the team to follow suit.
How much do you think he values, you know, rest at this time of year for the team?
You know, it's interesting because though if we needed him to play 40 minutes, 48 minutes, 48 plus minutes, he would do that because it's the playoffs. This is what you build your body for. He did go out on a limb and tell us right before this series started in our exclusive sit down that rest at this time of year during the playoffs, in between rounds, if you're fortunate to advance, is beneficial to his body. And so to kind of tie all of this discussion together, paired with what you guys talked about at the start of the show, his leadership will be so valuable in moments like this. Faran, you said it, because the team has to understand and remember the importance of now and taking care of business now and having those conversations that I believe he will have had with not just your second star player, but all the way to your 15th man. You know, having those conversations with a guy like Talen Horton-Tucker that could get some more run and just remembering to be himself because it's critical. Because if there's one thing we do know, there's a lot of voices surrounding this Lakers squad in the NBA world that already have the Lakers and Clippers in the conference finals. But LeBron James knows you don't get there until you take care of business in the semis. So I think that leadership is huge.
Yeah, jump in there, Kron.
Yeah, I love the fact that Allie touched on that because so many times as players, you look too far ahead.
Yeah.
Besides just handling business at the moment. And LeBron has always been one of those guys that's been in the moment. You know, I played him in numerous series in the past and clearly didn't win none of them. But, you know, he was always present in the moment to just finish us off and handle his business and stay true to the mission. So I think he'll do that.
What do you think about the rust part of it all when you're off almost too much because maybe you win too early? I mean, I know guys always like their rest, but, you know, you don't want to get the rust either if you're off for a week or
so. I think during the playoffs, you want that time off. You know, whether it's 2-3 days, you know, if you're a veteran team, you know how to calculate that time off. You know how to, you know, use your time off. And you know how to engage and verbalize to your teammates, your younger teammates in particular, on how we're going to spend this time off prepping for the next series so that we don't get rusty. The other thing is, too, guys, you guys were touching on, when you have a 3-1 lead, that's a dangerous lead to have because you kind of know that the team doesn't want to win 3 games in a row, but all it takes is one win. It goes to 3-2. That's a lot of pressure that next game to close it out when you should close it out when it's 3-1. So I'm glad we have veteran leadership. They know how to close out this game because when it's 3-2, it can get tricky if it gets ties up to 3-3. It's a huge momentum switch, so they got to take care of business tonight.
And also, this is my observation of watching the game closely in this series in particular. I don't feel like the Houston Rockets believe they can win this series.
Yeah.
They believe they can win a game, but then all of a sudden that confidence start building once you get a game here or there. And look, the Clippers and the Nuggets, they're in a fight. The Nuggets believe they can win that series.
Allie, last thing from you. It's an interesting stat here, 34.6. That's the lowest playoff minutes on average of LeBron's career. It's pretty shocking. How important is that stat, Allie, you think?
I think it's huge just because of what he admitted to us. Again, before the series started, I always thought that he was a guy that didn't like rest. And then he reminded me and kind of set the record straight that he doesn't like COVID-19 hiatus kind of rest because as athletes, we're all creatures of habit. And so your routine is important and keeping your body fresh and kind of in said routine is key. But at this stage of the game, we continue to say it all the time. He's 35 years old in season 17. And so to have his minutes as low as they have been, one, speaks to the work that the team is putting in as a whole and what they're able to accomplish. But then if you're able to advance and the Lakers are fortunate to move on, you know that it's only going to get tougher and the demand and the responsibility that will be required from him is only going to increase. So right now, they got him in a really good position.
Allie, great stuff. Enjoy the evening and the game. We will see you in the postgame show, my friend.
Gonna go grab a Heineken.
Great job, sis.
And some goose. All right, we're getting closer to tip-off. LeBron knows how to close out teams. He averages over 29 points a game in closeout games since 2015. He's 14-1 when he has a chance to close it out in those 5 games. And next, we're going to take a closer look at how plus-minus superstar Alex Caruso is bringing even more to the table on the offensive end in this series with the Rockets. And as we go to break, we have some A-listers behind Big Game James there in the house in our virtual fan section. We got Leo, Denzel, Q, Flea. Nice. Uncle Snoop.
All the liquor greats.
This could be Staples Center right there.
Squad.
Closeout game at Staples. Real nice.
I got here because I'm confident myself, man. I don't make it out of the G League. I don't make it out of undrafted if I don't have a self-confidence, some type of self-belief. When I'm in the game, I'm there for a reason.
Caruso intercepts it. Three-pointer up for Danny Green. It's good. Oh, nice feed by LeBron James. Caruso with the layup. And Caruso sneaks free. Gets by Covington. Caruso buries the 3 for the Lakers.
Caruso very good without the ball.
Missed by Harden. And that'll be Laker ball. Shot clock down to 4. James pounded it. Gives it up. Caruso for 3. Oh! Caruso with a big hit.
I've been practicing that corner 3 from Braun all year. There was a packed paint and I'm wide open in the corner. That's just who I am. I'm playing to win, so if it all comes to me, I'm going to be ready to go.
Good time shot, boy.
Alex Caruso had the top net rating on the Lakers in the first round. He's round 2. He's been much bigger factor on the offensive end. 4 more points per game. His shooting percentages are way up. 52% from the field, 38% from 3 in the playoffs. AC Fresh, second among all players who play at least 15 minutes in net rating, plus 15. He does so many things well. He contributes to winning basketball. James, he hasn't looked overwhelmed at all in his first playoff run.
No, he doesn't experience fear, I'm sure he had his nervous moments in the G League coming up, trying to learn the system, trying to make the big varsity team. But now that he's here, he's one of the calmest, hardest playing players that I've seen, man. And if there was a category on the stat sheet for intangibles, he would win that probably every game, hand down. It's because he's smart, especially on the defensive end. He's been asked to run some point, That's a big, heavy load to ask a young player. But on defense, he's so engaged, and he knows where the ball is, and he's following it. And before you know it, he's sticking his hand in for a deflection. He did so well on Harden with the vertical rule. He let Harden drive all the way to the bucket and did the best he could with the vertical. And it was effective. And he's a smart player. He's one of those players just like a late bloomer that comes along. You don't know a lot about him when he was at Texas A&M. But I tell you what, man, he's going to be an asset in the NBA for a long time, the way he plays the game on both ends.
Yeah, I agree with you, James. And Karan, time for a little Access 360. When you look at this Laker bench, they've had a series, and what an advantage it gives this Laker team. So why don't you break it down?
It's a huge advantage. When you talk about the dynamic duo of, LeBron James and clearly Anthony Davis, can't talk enough about those guys, but I want to shine a little light on the others. And I'm going to start off with Caruso, just to piggyback on what Big Game was talking about. Look at his awareness. Understanding that James Harden is coming downhill, going vertical straight up, not sticking his hand in the cookie jar, even though James Harden was seeking out that foul and just, turned it into a turnover situation. Great basketball stop. Once again, I love the fact that Caruso did not elect to stab. That always is bad basketball when you have an MVP candidate and Russell Westbrook coming full steam at you. He turned it to a turnover, shifted the momentum, and got Danny Green a wide open shot from the perimeter. Now look at Tucker. They did a remarkable job at hitting Harden, getting the ball out of his hand, getting it to a lesser of an offensive player in Austin Rivers, and then he came back and got in it defensively and plucked it away. Now this is the last possession, and you got to recognize the shot clock. 5 seconds. That means it's red. James Harden is going to get in his bag. 1-1,000, 2-1,000. Caruso goes. He hits. His hands is high. The excellent rotation by Rondo. By the time it got to Tucker, which is an excellent corner shooter, there's no time on the clock. Excellent defense by the others.
Great breakdown. Excellent stuff right there about offense and defense and what these guys are doing collectively. Awesome breakdown right there, that last play, getting that ball out of Harden's hands. Brez, when you look at this Laker bench, there's not a single guy that's not playing great. So you can have your choice of who's impacting the game.
It's been an amazing run for them. Remember all the talk about how great the Clipper bench was during the regular season? And they were the top scoring bench in the league. The Lakers were 11th in scoring by the reserves. Lakers all the way up to 4th in the playoffs, a third of a point behind the Clipper bench. The Clippers are actually 3rd in reserve scoring. So yeah, very, very deep bench. Markieff Morris had that really good Game 3. Got the starting nod in Game 4. And, of course, Rondo. I mean, what can you say about that guy? In the last 3 games, averaging 14 points. And for me, the big number, he's averaging almost 9 assists the last 3 games. People forget he was second on the Lakers in assists during the regular season behind one LeBron James, who led the whole league, of course. But he's really had a calming effect on that second unit. And he's not just stuck on the second unit, guys. In the last 3 games, he's averaging almost 30 minutes per game. Lots of overlap with those first-teamers as well.
Look at this, Brez. Earlier, we asked everyone which of the role players has had the biggest impact in this series. We know what a Twitter legend Alex Caruso is. And if you are a member and a fan of Laker Twitter, which I am, and we all are, you know what a shock this is. Caruso never loses anything. But Rondo?
People were so down on him after Game 1, too.
69%.
It's just huge. I mean, the Laker Twitter was so down on him after Game 1. He did not play that well. He hadn't played a game in 6 months, but impressive.
Tip-off minutes away. Lakers did a nice job.
He is the champion.
There you go.
Containing James Harden in Game 4. Harden had 21 points, but was just 2 for 11 from the field. Take your shot as next.
Aim at the one in the middle.
Access Sportsnet Lakers is brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealer.